That's fine.
Good morning, Suzanne.
Good morning, Deborah Leanne.
Let's get to gallery style here so we can be side by side. I am here to talk today with you about this I say this every time, but each one of these feels so deep, like we're heading into some foreign territory. And hopefully we're like lifting the veil, for ourselves and for others. But this today is about karmic relationships. Do you want to introduce our topic?
Yes, we are talking about the 44th Gene Key, written by Richard Rudd. And this is moving from the shadow of interference to the Siddhic state of Synarchy. And that is through the gift of teamwork. Go team.
Yeah. And so uh the so to interference is such a perfect way to start. If you don't mind, I like to dive into the shadow first because it actually is what feeds it's where the rest of it blossoms. But let's talk a little bit about interference because I feel like I've been living with it lately with uh, very intermittent Wi-Fi connection, and it's whatever it is that's creating that wonkiness. Do you remember when we first got cell phones and we would be on the phone and then people would get warbly and we would kind
Mhm,
of lose touch because we were out of cell range, which doesn't
mhm.
happen much anymore. It's that same kind of feeling. Um, and I'm wondering how that shows up for you because I'm feeling it in a lot of ways within my body, within my relationships, and especially more probably the most easily in technology.
Well, I think I don't know this for sure, but when there are times that we don't connect with people, they're not part of our what we call our fractal, which is part of our group. And so it feels staticky. I don't
Hmm. Yeah.
um and the people that do resonate and come into our sphere, are they we're all teachers and all students, and that's where that kind of all plays together. But the interference,
It doesn't feel comfortable. This is my thing. And I think, like, if we were to describe what it feels like when we're in a relationship or something where there is interference, what does that feel like to you?
well, it feels a little chaotic, but I do also think that it's there to bust open something within us.
I get that, but let's go back to,
Oh, okay.
I want to go back to, so what is it? When do you, how would you notice it in your body? When there's interference in your body, how does it show up for you?
Mm. Well, it it pushes me. It feels uncomfortable in my body.
Hmm.
Like I don't. Sometimes I want to escape it.
Oh, most of the time I do. So, um, I mean, because it feels, to me, it feels like there's like a war. And sometimes people can understand it better if you talk about your mind, your heart, your body, your soul, your spirit, like different parts of you wanting to go in different directions. And you're like, well, no, or so there's that. But there's also, to me lately, I've been feeling the energetic of it,
Mm,
the the chaos or the dissonance that's in the collective field. I mean, that when we're
yes.
driving in traffic, when we're with people, just people, not our fractal family, which makes it a little bit more resonant, right? Then we can relax and you can feel
Right.
when you're in that. resonant field, how you do, how your whole system can relax, right? But
Yeah.
when you're in a place of, I have to be on high alert because do I need to protect myself or do I need to control the situation? It's very, uh, it's anxiety producing. So that's what it feels like to me. It feels like an anxiety thing, like buzzing through me.
Mm.
I
Well,
don't like it. I'll just say I'm not a fan, but
well, and I think too, when we aren't, um, I attended a workshop this past weekend on, it was on relationships. And um, what was very interesting to me is, when you relate to one another, you both want the same result. Honestly, you want it to be resolved, but you don't feel like the other person can hear you until you
so if
actually.
you were to use that in I statements,
I Well, ha, the funny part is that, like, my husband and I are the same style of people, so we tend to just go inward and withdraw. Um, but there are styles where one is the pursuer and then one is the withdrawer, right? The pursuer is wanting the other person to see and like understand them, and the other person just feels shame and backs away and kind of closes down. They don't ever want to hurt the other person. They feel terrible, but there's that, we do want peace. And I kind
yeah.
of feel like this is happening collectively in our collective consciousness right now. And what's interesting is in this um, repressive nature of this key, when we repress ourselves to try and make peace and make nice with everybody else, it's very submissive and it's a fear-based response,
Yeah.
right?
So it's not being truthful
It's
either.
no, no,
And yeah, and that's not a great way to create peace.
right. And it's again because it's fear-based. And
Hmm.
then the opposite is kind of like what I was saying, the pursuer, right? That's
Yeah.
more of the reactionary, stir, somebody that stirs the pot to get stuff moving. I mean, each one of these is absolutely perfect for our own evolution. We
Hmm.
need both parts. Um, it's the
And
irritation. It's the irritation and the judgment. It's the thing that gets the grit, that gets the things stirring to move forward. So,
yeah, and I loved how Richard describes it in his 64 ways audio of this gene key. He describes the nuclear family, how every family has the more submissive, more go along to get along to keep the peace kind of people. And then we all have, or can think of someone in our family that is the stir or the reactor, or he calls them the nuclear reactor, because they really are the semiconductor, like, you know, and I won't say which one I am. And but that as soon as we recognize and like shift and become the maybe more submissive or become the more stir upper person, then the other person switches. So
mm-hmm,
it's like everybody keeps changing roles to keep the dance moving.
right,
And he said once you get to a place where you can observe the dance and go, oh,
right.
look at that.
You're
Okay.
like, there we are again. And do
So
I want to change my role? Like, we can learn some new moves, like we don't have to be stuck in the same patterns.
yeah, I I also think that it's such a new way of our awareness. It's like how we're moving consciousness wise up from that self-authoring, right? To the next level, which is more integral, which is the, oh, I can see all the players on the playing field.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't it an interesting observation? And it's from that place that we can shift and move and do fit in. And we actually do that in ourselves. That's what I thought was fascinating, that peace begins in each of our cells,
Yeah.
and that's how we will get to peace on earth. But until we have peace within, and
Yeah.
not just in one place within, in all of our cells.
Right. I love that too. That was just so delicious. The fact that we talk about it, if we could just focus on not being a victim and that we can take control of our being, like just how we show up by consciously being aware of our body
Mm-hmm.
and where we are giving our attention and intention, it'll get clearer for us and we can
Yeah.
settle down in that.
You know,
It's
I,
like,
I had this thought this morning as I woke up, and I could feel a lot of energy moving through me this morning. And I thought, now, wait a minute. I'm going to choose to stay grounded. I'm going to choose to say yes to all of this. There was a video I watched from two of my favorite somatic teachers this week, introducing a new course that they've just launched. And I want to just demonstrate it with you. If you'll do it with me, it's so fun.
okay.
So our body very often, because of we don't like what's going on, or we have a reaction to what's going on, or we want to hide or not feel what's going on, our body does a lot of no, which isn't helping, because then we're creating more dissonance in the field. So what they were saying is, how can you say yes and stay open in the middle of all the craziness, in the middle of the discomfort, in the middle of the pain? And um, what I find is I have my own body's way of closing down, tensing up. It used to be very much in my jaw. Now it's still in my shoulders, but my hands. So what she was showing is that we stand with our hands out, with our thumbs back, our palms wide open. So except for you have your arms out,
Okay.
kind of like you remember seeing Blessed Mother, the Mary, the Virgin, the statues were always where she had her heart open like this, right, and her arm
Mm,
out, right? Or
I love the image. Yep.
I do too. And so there's this openness that allow. Oh my gosh, my heart is open. I can breathe. My energy can flow from my brain all the way down my spine. And by having I mean, literally taking my thumbs and pushing them back,
Yeah.
it's an active way of opening. And so I'm practicing that now when there is something going on that makes me annoyed, or I,
Instead of curling up into it like a
instead of
fetal
like this
position.
protective fetal position that we tend to crawl into, right?
Right, right.
So it's like, okay, yes, I
Yeah.
called in this life, right? I helped co-create everything to this moment in my life. So why
Yep.
am I saying no to it? And
Yep.
yes, I want more growth. I want more love. And then what am I calling in
Well,
versus who am I running from, right? This is where
right.
we
Right. That's
react to that. Yeah.
I love that because a lot of times, sometimes I believe that our fear is how good can it get? We
Because we
don't
can't,
know because we can't even imagine it.
well, we also don't believe we deserve it, right? It's like,
Mm,
oh,
where
I
did
think,
that come from?
oh, well, it came, that thought just, yes. So when we allow something beautiful, I mean, I could feel just when I straightened my whole body,
Mhm.
my whole body went, okay, you deserve more. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is dignity, by the way. When we're in our full embodiment, we can feel our full dignity and our value.
A-
So there's something so beautiful about that. And I'm like,
mm,
ah. So anyway, I feel like we've already kind of flipped a little bit into the gift, because we've been talking about how to get our cells in alignment, which creates the teamwork. It also allows us to have resonance, even with those that we maybe wouldn't normally have resonance. Um, because we're saying yes, because we're saying we're here in this on this planet together right now. How can we shift things?
Beautiful. So how do
Okay,
you believe that it how do you believe that it can go into the from that dissonance into or interference into teamwork?
I feel like it's stop fighting. It's stop fighting what is, stop reacting to it, stop resisting it, stop turning away from it. It's it's a recognition that we're all here at this time for a reason, and that I love one of the teachers I worked with for a while. He had a he had a beautiful saying. He would say, at any time where you can't see your way out, you can just say, "Is there room for love even here?" And I'm like, even in the midst of this craziness, even in the midst of me when I was really sick last week, is there room for love even here? This mess. And there's always room for love.
Mm,
And that to me allows me to say, of course, even the people who I have a hard time being with, they have a purpose right now. And can I find that there's still space for me to be me without shutting down? I can still be me, be the bright light that I am. And there's something we're here to co-create together.
yeah. I love that life has that just natural it's the naturalness. I mean, I
My gene key.
yeah, it's it's so amazing that we mistrust life. Like it will naturally gravitate us to what we need when we need it.
Absolutely.
And that's, I believe, is the whole thing about the teamwork gift is that it's completely self-organizing.
Oh,
You
I
are
love
going to
that.
be attracted to the people that you are here to work with
Mm-hmm.
so that you can share your creativity and service to all.
Right.
Like it's, you don't have to work at it. I mean, you should keep showing up.
Yeah. And there was this beautiful way he described it with music. He said, so when you find um, one of the ways that you create in the world or your service in the world is, let's say you're playing guitar, and then you find a bunch of other people that play strings, and then you find a way to jam together and you make that music together and it sounds pretty good. And then when you get to the spiritual level, how all of a sudden there's a full symphony that's so fantastic because I've done my work. I've found my fractal family, and now we're naturally falling into the place of the full wholeness. And that's when he said you start noticing that there's a superconductor. There's not just a conductor, there's a superconductor
Conductor.
in each
Within each one of us.
of that. I was like,
Yeah,
oh my goodness. So why do, and this is exactly the opposite of being the victim of the interference,
right,
right?
right.
But it
When you
feeds
really,
into, you know?
yeah,
So,
the superconductor within each one of us. I mean, as we are created, I mean, it's just amazing to me. I get goosebumps when I think about it. And it's that higher quality. We can't deny that this is an amazing instrument.
oh,
This is an amazing instrument with its own healing capabilities built into it. What? It's and it resonates. It resonates and then it resonates with other people. We have this voice box that we and sometimes what I love about when you think about this other the other aspects of us, sometimes we can connect and communicate without even talking.
yeah.
You know,
And
we
that's when you're really with your fractal family, right? Where you feel like you can so relax, and all of that extra energy that goes into I have to get the right words to make sure my communication is received. all that falls away because then we just show up and we are who we are.
Right.
Oh, that whole relaxing thing, I'm still working on that one. That is a life's work. So it is important to notice. And the other thing I loved is the self-organizing of nature. He
Hmm.
talks about the hierarchy, which has gotten kind of a bad name in the world these days in leadership, is how do we, but if you look at the root, the Latin root of hierarchy, it's the sacred levels of leadership. You know,
Yeah.
it's not power over, it's not, it's just that you're doing your thing and you're doing your thing and everybody's falling
Right.
into the natural organization of things.
Well, and he also talks about it being based on perception. So hierarchies look bad when it's fear-based.
Yeah.
But when you can change your perspective and your perception of it and recognize that each one takes ownership of their gifts and contributes who they are to their fullest, then everybody can start working in concert with one
Oh
another.
my gosh. Can
And
we start
that's
loving each other more and maybe allowing people to be? Do you remember you wrote that on our refrigerator years ago? It came from Jesse, what was his name?
Jesse Elder.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was that LOVE,
Yeah.
and you have let others voluntarily
Voluntarily
evolve.
evolve. So you can't take on other people's shiznit, you know, if they're not
Control them.
ready.
Like you should be learning this right now. No.
Right. No. We all have our own stuff that we're working through. So
Yeah, I had a
just
great conversation with that with my friend yesterday about when I use the term love, it means something completely. She says, you lose me every time you use that. And I'm like, well, let's find what's the word for you. And we
right.
finally settled for her, it's beauty.
Oh, yeah.
So beauty has a mind, body, spirit, essence to it for her.
Mm,
Whereas love to her, and I think we've done a pretty bad, Disney thing around love that it has to look like a certain type of romance kind of thing versus to me love is the power and the force of good, right? It's a
right.
operating system that is growing and evolving us, whereas
Yeah.
fear keeps us, pulls us back the other way.
Well,
But
and
so yes, thank you for that because that's
yeah. And um, I also like the fact and kind of just using the hierarchy. I mean, the hierarchy, it moves to heterarchy, which means the heart is organizing the brain. So it's using both hemispheres,
oh
the
mm-hmm,
right and the left brain. Yeah.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, it's connecting them
yeah,
as
and
opposed
I
to
love that. Mm-hmm.
being in the fear-based, like reactionary stage. Yeah.
So this is where I get lost on synarchy because I know we haven't really touched on this on the city much, but I that's the all of it all, right? Like
That's the like collective, but it's a symphony working in concert. I think that's what you said before.
with the symphony and the
Yeah,
superconductor
the
that's within each.
superconductor.
Hmm. So when
And
we're
that
all in that space of being our own superconductors and our cells, we can actually tap on the piece within each of our cells. That's when we will transform humanity, right? Into a peaceful. I mean, I think that's when war will be eliminated.
yeah. Well, and not to like diminish or resolve us to an example like bees and ants, but everybody has a role and they do their
Mhm.
thing and they work pretty harmoniously. They're all working together. If somebody's down, man down, everybody's over there. You know, the ant, if you watch ants and bees, they're all helping each other.
Always. Yeah. And
Wasn't there a movie about that?
oh,
Was
yeah.
it called Ants or something? I don't
There
know.
was an ant movie and there's also the bee movie.
Yeah.
So it's it's so fascinating to me to study other animals in their communities and how the roles all just like it's not like, oh, you're more powerful than me, so I'll just like, go sit in a corner and feel like a victim. It's not like that. It's like, oh yay, I get to be the grudge person today and clean up the hive. Yippee. You know.
Yeah.
So and I think that's what where each of us finding what is meaningful and what has purpose for us, which is what brought me back to that space with my friend the other day. Is I said, what calls you forward?
Right.
What would be a word that makes your whole body light up? Because that's what we want to use. And then that takes you towards something versus running from, I don't want to feel like that. I don't want to feel like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Again, it's that focus of intention and giving
mm,
your attention to that intention, and
right.
not from a fear base, but from a holistic perspective of what lights you up.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your soul saying?
I don't know. My soul doesn't have very clear words, and I'm learning that. I used to really just say, come on, show me a billboard or, bring an airplane across the sky with a big sign saying, this is your next step.
I'm guilty of that too. Yeah, I
I
know.
know.
So,
Can we just have
but
clarity?
that's when we really I have this opportunity to, there's no rush, and
Mm,
that's where we can slow down in our bodies and we get those little teeny breadcrumbs. And you have to be really patient and like observant for them. They're
mhm.
there, whether you hear them or see them or people come into your space to assist. Um, but they're all there. They're
Yeah.
there all along. So,
It's keeping
um,
your palms open.
exactly, right? And saying, I'm expecting, I don't know what it is, but I'm expecting this because I know that good is there
Yeah.
for me.
And being receptive.
Yeah.
Years ago, that whole thing about being feminine and being receptive, I thought was so difficult for me because I was too busy pushing my way through everything,
It's that
and
force.
as a strong, independent woman.
Mm,
Well, and then I realized a strong, independent woman sometimes is super receptive to what can show up in my life today to be in support of me. What people, what circumstances, what clients, what
yeah. And I
financial
think
opportunities.
for this week, let's just play a game of curiosity.
Okay, I'm in.
Yeah.
I'll play.
And just be open to new people coming into your life and
I
showing
am
up at
so
just the
ready.
right question, at just at the right time.
I love that. Yes, please.
Yeah.
Well, I will I I know that we could go on and on about this because this is such a uh there's something really deep and wide in this topic that could, hopefully we've started some ripples and we'll see what happens from here. I know this definitely has opened me up a little bit more so on this topic.
And
And
thank you for the pose. Open hands.
yep.
Yeah.
And let's just keep saying yes. And even though it feels really uncomfortable sometimes to have all of this feeling of everything going on in the world, know that we were built for this.
Yeah.
You know, we showed
We're
up at
re-
this time.
we're resilient.
Yes, we are. So love you, girl. I'll talk
Yes.
to you next time. Thanks,
Yes.
everyone. And questions and comments are appreciated. Talk to you later. Bye.
Later.